Hi all, good morning. Welcome to the session. Okay, let me go to AWS console first. Then we'll have recap. Yes, in last class, we have been talking about EC2 related things. We talked about placement groups. Yeah, snapshots, AMIs, correct. Placement groups also, right? Placement groups. Yes, thanks, Ipsita. Volume, yes, Lakshmi. All these things. So let's say how to create volumes, there is snapshots. Volumes we have discussed, I think already discussed how to attach a EBS volume, right? Before that class. Snapshots, AMIs, lifecycle manager, I think Elastic IP also. Elastic IP and placement groups. And what is snapshot, guys? Yes, it's a copy of EBS volume. And it's copy of your EBS volume. Yes, copy. And you have option of taking copy of your volume and instance, right? It's copy. Either you can take a single volume, a snapshot, and you can take your instance. When you take copy of your instance, both your root volume and other volumes, whatever attached with your instance, will get copied. And then AMI. So what is this AMI? Amazon machine image, of course. You can create your own AMI. Yes, it will be attached to snapshot. You can have AMI without attaching snapshot, but if you want to boot AMI, definitely it has to be attached with snapshot, because AMI means it makes your snapshot data a bootable one. Yes, AMI, and you deregister it. Is a bootable copy of your instance. And life cycle manager. This life cycle manager, you can take snapshots of either volumes or instances. So this is for taking backup volumes or instance. And elastic IP. What is this elastic IP, guys? Elastic IP means static IP for your instance. Yes, public IP is there, private IP is there. If you want, most of the times we use elastic IP for public IP. Yes, it's a reserved public IP. Correct. So if you attach this elastic IP, then uh, IP of the instance will be static, a static IP address for your instance. And we talked about placement groups. There are three types of placement groups, right? Yeah, static IP, most we use it for public IP because public IP will keep on changing. Your private IP will also change, but we use elastic IP in most of the cases for public IP. If you want, you can also associate it as a private IP. Yes, cluster, partition, and spread. Cluster. Cluster means, yeah, instances within single availability zone. So here same AZ availability zone and same hardware rack in your cluster. A partition. So partition will be in the same AZ, same availability zone, and partitions are in different hardware racks. So your instances will be placed in same availability zone in different partitions and in different hardware racks. Partition is made purposely that it has to be a different hardware. We don't want to place all the EC2 instances in the same hardware. Partitions can be made, and it's your wish. Up to seven. Seven is the maximum number. You can make seven partitions. Spread. You spread across. Say low latency and network performance, partition, mix up, cluster, and spread. Yes, Ipsita. Yes, a group of instances that are placed in distinct tracks. Yes. So here your availability zone is also different. Different availability zones are used and different hardware. Yes, hardware to reduce course call spread, especially when you are too much concerned about redundant, as Ipsita said, to reduce correlated failures. You go and spread your instances across the availability zones and again in different hardware. These things we talked about. Let's go to our AWS console. EC2. And we know security groups already. So all the security groups you have created so far will appear here. I don't say that there is no limit for security groups. Of course, you can use security groups for free. I think there is some limit, but it is a huge limit, 2000 or something, 2000 per region or something like that. You can have so many security groups, and you can reuse your security groups also. Instead of creating a new security group every time, you can create reuse the security group. So let us go to free AWS amazon.com/free. Let's see security groups are there or not. So no results found, that means no limits. No limits for security group. And key pairs. See, these are the key pairs I have created within this region. And also key pairs, if you change region, they won't appear there. So everything related to EC2 is regional. EC2 is a regional service. Your console, you can, whatever services you have deployed, whatever services that are running, you, if you want to manage or operate them, you can only see in your regional dashboard, network interfaces. I have all these network interfaces, and they are attached with these subnets. If you click on this, it will take you to that subnet, a subnet. And this subnet uh, is Mumbai's VPC subnet. It can be, it is AP South 1A. Let me close this. And here also it's there. Availability zone is this one. And security group, instance ID, public IPv4, all these things are there. What is this network interface, anyone? And AWS calls it as ENI, Elastic Network Interface. And do you guys aware of something called as NIC card, Network Interface Card? Network Interface Card. It looks like this. See, this is NIC card. If your laptop, phone, or any other device is connecting to Wi-Fi, means it should have a NIC card. Without a NIC card, it cannot connect to network. See, that's why Ethernet slot is also directly attached to the NIC card. This is hardware. Network interface card is the hardware inside your computer, and with the help of this hardware, you are using internet. This is the hardware that connects to or Wi-Fi or hotspot or anything, Ethernet, anything. Without this network interface card, no network, right? And EC2 means virtual machine. Instead of a physical machine, getting a physical machine, we are getting a virtual machine. And this elastic network interface is a virtual NIC card for our computer. And since AWS is a cloud and you are using it virtually, you have an option of editing this network interface also. This is a virtual NIC card. And since it's virtual, it's not only virtual, elastic in nature. That means if you want to add one more network interface for your instance or for your network, we will talk about it. Creating own VPC, own subnet, yes, you can add. That's why they have named it as ENI, Elastic Network Interface. Without this network interface, your instance cannot get a public IP, um, or even private IP also, because it's a network. Even private IP means within the VPC network, that private IP will be valid. So to join network, to use network, we need this ENI. That's why when you don't create this, we actually don't create this. When you create your EC2 instance, it will automatically uh, create it and attached with your EC2 instance. Why? Because it has to be there to operate instance either in private network and public network. Suppose I want two network interfaces for my instance, which is not recommended. Of course, let's say for example, you can go and create a network interface and attach with your instance or VPC. Say this is the my extra ENI, and ENI are not free tier eligible. If you are doing lab related to ENI, delete it after lab is done. If you are deleting immediately, even though you are not using services which are not in free tier eligible thing, that's fine. So in AWS, charge is there for everything, but for some services there are limits. Within that limits you can use free of cost, and for some services that limit is not there. And keeping ENI will cost us, so you have to delete it. Subnet, subnet in which to create the network interface. You can choose one. Let's go for 1B. I have two subnets in 1B, so let's go to 1A. I don't know which one is default, so it's safe to go with 1A. Private IP address auto assign. Yes. So this is something elastic fabric adapter. Let's enable. So this is like some hardware related, network related thing. So do you want this fabric adapter with your ENI? Enable it. So let you know what is this fabric adapter. And security group. Which security group you wish to use with this ENI? Let's choose any one. Let's keep this and create network interface. Extra ENI. It's available but not in use. And same like your volumes, which row this is? Second, this one. Actions, attach, attach to any instance, right? That means it has two network interfaces. Network interface, that is the interface where you connect to network. When you connect to network, a device has to be identified in the network. How? How it gets uniquely identified in the network? Through IP address. Actually, IP address is assigned to this NIC cards, network interface cards. If you have two ENIs, that means two IP addresses. So, and other details, primary private IPv4 address, and we don't have secondary, we don't have IPv6 addresses. And public IP is not there. If I attach it with my instance, I'll get a public IP too. So that's about ENI. Let me delete this. When you have created a EC2 instance and the one ENI attached with your EC2 instance, for that ENI, AWS will not bill. The extra ENIs which you are creating, don't keep them, delete them. And all these ENIs, two ENIs are related to instances. These two are instance ID, and others are related to EFS, Elastic File System. We will talk about that later. Those are ENIs, network interfaces. And now here we are at load balancing, and there are two things: load balancers and target groups. We already created instances and launched web server on it, right? Suppose there are five or six instances which are front end servers, say for example, and the purpose of having multiple servers is to serve traffic. People will not just keep their application in single server. There will be multiple servers, and this load balancer is one hardware as well as software, and it's managed by AWS. It's AWS managed service. It distributes the load coming from internet equally among the servers. What does that mean? Let me open this. This load balancer does three jobs. And by this time, we know that there will be VPC, right? What is our VPC, guys? We have gone with default Mumbai's VPC. So this is my Mumbai default VPC, and the code is AP-South-1. And we also know that there will be availability zones. Let's say this is availability zone, and this is one more availability zone. Yeah, three AZs. Three AZs are there. This AZ, one. Let's call it as AZ1, or AP South-1A. This is 1B. and this is 1C. Let's say this is our EC2. And we have here and also here. And all these three are web servers. Let's say, let's assume that these three are web servers. Three web servers are there in three availability zones. And now if user from the outside internet this is Mumbai's VPC, right? Let us make this thing small. And these three are my availability zones, and this is my VPC, and this is user from outside internet. And we know our web application is running on these EC2 instances. When outside user from the internet, when he sends a request, so request, right? He sends request saying deb dot, let's say, example.com or slash index.html. Let's say he says deb example.com. He will not use IP address as we did. We have launched one HTTPD service, created index.html, and we tested whether it's working or not using IP address or public DNS of our EC2 instances. But after deploying all your servers, suppose three servers are there. Now this outside user is requesting for the web application some page. It can be a default HTML page or some service from the servers, and to which server this request will be routed to. Is it to server 1, first EC2 in availability zone 1A, or this one? Which one? We don't know. Randomly it goes to, let's say, 1A. And the second user has also sent the same request. Let's say it's also routed to this EC2 only, which is in 1A availability zone. And there is no order. And the disadvantage is the main idea of having three servers is our application has to be highly available. If there are three servers, then the three can handle the requests, so that our application will not hang out. It will not slow down. With that objective, we have created three EC2 instances as a servers. But what's happening is all the requests are randomly routed to server 1, 2, and 3. In that, say 60% of the traffic is routed to server number 1, and only that 40% of traffic to other servers. That means people who are going accessing these servers web application might get slow time or downtime, whatever it is, right? And we want uh, to distribute traffic equally among these servers. and that is the job of load balancer. If we have a load balancer will distribute the traffic coming out from outside equally among these EC2 servers. And this load balancer operates across the region. That means it's not it can operate in multiple availability zones. Let's call this as availability zones. Sorry, load balancer. And again, everything is elastic in nature in AWS. So this is also elastic load balancer, ELB. Now, if people send www.example.com, of course, this DNS will be registered with your ELB or servers. We will talk about that later. Let's say this is our domain name and or our company or business uh, domain name. And when people give this, it will not go to server. It will go to your ELB. And this ELB is intelligent device. What it will do? It will distribute traffic equally among these EC2 servers in round robin fashion. That means first request will go to first EC2, second request will go to second, third to third, again fourth request will be routed to sorry, EC2 1. Clear guys up to this part? That is the job of ELB. That's why it's called as load balancer. Yes. And now I told this load balancer in AWS does three things. First one, distributing traffic equally among the servers. Second thing, health checks. It makes health checks and will not route traffic to unhealthy servers. This ELB also does health checks. Why? Because suppose if some server is having some issue, it can be issue with operating system or issue with its software, or it is under maintenance, upgradation, or patches are happening in that server. Let's say that is second server. This ELB will periodically check all these EC2 instances whether they are able to respond back or not. If they are not in a condition to respond back, ELB will not send traffic to that. Then ELB will consider these two EC2 instances only as because they are healthy servers. It will route traffic to only healthy servers. That is one more advantage with ELB. And it will be constantly checking this EC2 also. When it becomes healthy again, when its status becomes healthy, again it will route traffic, it will consider these server also. This is one more advantage with ELB, the second job of your ELB. These two are jobs of ELB. And the third thing is it's going to act as single point of contact. It's actually not a job, but this is a single point of contact, right? For all the EC2s, for all the servers. Now, when a user or any other computer, it need not be user only, you can also set up ELBs within the private network also. Then that ELB acts upon, suppose there are database servers, backend servers, some other servers. you want ELB for those servers. They operate in only private network. There is no public IP for those servers. Then ELB distribute traffic equally among those private servers. Yeah, ELB means load balancer. E stands for elastic. That's it. Elastic load balancer. ELB is a load balancer. Yes. And then single point of contact. Why? Because if you have 3 servers, 4 servers, or 10 servers, single ELB will be attached to all of them, and your web application will be running on all of those servers. You really don't bother about which server to send a request. You send your request to ELB. So ELB will distribute traffic. So it's also acting as single point of contact for all the servers. Now let's go and see how to create one ELB in AWS. Clear, guys, up to this job of ELB? Yes. Okay, then we will go to load balancer. And before talking about creating load balancer, we should create target group. And I have 2 target groups. Let me delete these 2. No target groups. What are these target groups? Servers which are targets of load balancers. Here in this picture, these are 3 servers. These 3 servers are target of my ELB. Within traffic is distributed to these 3 servers. Let's say no fill. So these are target groups. Not target groups, target group. This target group has 3 EC2s. EC2 servers are called as targets, and you have to create a target group, and then you attach this target group with your ELB. Right, that's how you provision. First you create target group, add members in the target group. These 3 instances which are servers or members of target group, then attach your target group with ELB. Then ELB will get to know that members within the target group are the servers to which traffic has to be routed. So let's create our target group first. And again, in this load balances, there are 3 types, not 3, 4 types. First, we'll go to load balancer page, create load balancer, application load balancer, network load balancer, gateway load balancer, and the old classic load balancer. Choose a classic load balancer when you have an existing application running in the EC2 classic network. This is for people or users who have deployed their applications in old AWS console. Before they have introduced this application load balancer and network load balancer, then there used to be only one load balancer. I think 4 or 5 years back, I guess, we used to have only one option, that is this load balancer. And then they have made this name it as classic load balancer and launched these two, application load balancer and network load balancer. And recently in this year, this is very recent one, in this year 2021 year, they have introduced this gateway load balancer also. In classic load balancer, because it is the only load balancer at that time, there is no target group also. You know, need not create target group. You can directly add instances here in classic load balancer. Let's say add a protocol. Let's keep it as HTTP only. Load balancer name. This is classic LB demo, and you can see the default VPC Mumbai. If you want to operate this in your own VPC, here you will get, if you have your own VPC, you will get that option. Do you want to create an internal load balancer? No. We discussed, right? If you want your load balance to operate within the network, not outside of the network, then you have to enable this internal load balancer. It's not a public load balancer. Enable advanced VPC configurations. That means selecting subnets and all. If you don't enable this, that means by default your load balancer is applicable to all the availability zones. If you are specific, because you have servers only one availability zone or two availability zones, then you can apply load balancer. Uh, uh, Click this and select your servers. Sorry, subnets. Otherwise, leave it. Then your load balancer operates to the entire within the entire region, within entire region's network or VPC network, rather than calling region. Within your VPC, it will work. Listener configuration. Listener means this load balancer has to receive the traffic, and that's called as listening. It has to listen to the internet. How it has to listen to the internet? Through HTTP. A port number, you can assume this port as a channel kind of a thing. For every protocol, there will be a port number. For HTTP, it is 80. SMTP is a protocol used for mail servers. It has a different port number. And if you want to add a database, there will be a different port number. So all these are there. And only SSL, TCP, HTTP you can add here. So it listens through HTTP port number 80. That's it. Just here you have to give the name. Next, assign security groups. You can create one or select an existing security group. Let's say create new. It should have that HTTP or custom TCP rule, because it has to listen through port number 80. That means security group should allow that traffic, and that traffic is called as custom TCP rule. Custom TCP is also like a HTTP rule, so no need to add HTTP rule. Let's go for custom TCP. Keep it as is the default one. Next, configure security settings, and here not much to do. If your traffic to the load balance need to be secured, then you have to use HTTPS and SSL, and here you have to bring in your certificates, SSL certificates. Nothing to do for us. We are using HTTP. And next, health check. So we discussed load balancer checks the health status of servers and accordingly it routes the traffic, distributes the traffic among the servers. And here it's asking how to do that health check. On what basis? Yes, you have to pin a HTTP request. A pin protocol is HTTP. That means it keep on uh, messaging HTTP request, sending it pins HTTP request. If it gets response back, it treats that server as good server, healthy server. Otherwise, it treats it as unhealthy. Simple. And it's also asking path. If index.html is okay, then you can keep index.html, or you have any other name to your HTML page, you can give it in the path. And response timeout, interval, unhealthy threshold, and healthy threshold. Response timeout. So how much time this health check load balancer. Suppose load balancer has pin request. And what is that request? Say it says IP address. Let's say IP address is some 172 dot some 10 dot 60 dot 123. Let's say this is the IP address of server number 1, and health check is happening to server number 1 by your ELB, elastic load balancer. What it will do, it will send a pin HTTP request to this path, and it also adds slash index.html. It has to get response back. It will wait for 5 seconds. If it is not getting response, then it will make another try also. Why? Because unhealthy threshold is 2. So in single attempt, your ELB, we don't want our ELB to decide that server is unhealthy. Maybe server is restarting, server is that new server, it's booting up. Maybe if you give some time, it will be able to respond back. That's why you can set a threshold. How many attempts your ELB has to make to decide whether it's healthy or unhealthy, that or unhealthy threshold and healthy threshold. Let us say you can give a number up to 10. Let's say 3 attempts. 3 attempts, and between these attempts it has to wait for 5 seconds. Response timeout. Suppose response is not coming, it has to wait for 5 seconds and make another attempt. Again send this pin request. If it is getting response good, then also it has to again try. How many attempts has to be made to treat any server as healthy or unhealthy? These many times. Unhealthy threshold is 3 times. Healthy threshold is 10 times, which is too much. So we will also reduce this to 3. And interval. This is timeout. When your ELB is not getting response, it will wait for 5 seconds. And interval between the consecutive attempts. Consecutive attempts means 3 attempts has to be made to treat whether server is healthy or unhealthy, and time interval between those attempts is 30 seconds, whereas 5 seconds is to decide whether server is healthy or unhealthy. It if it response is not getting back within 5 seconds, then your ELB will treat it as unhealthy. That is response timeout. If you want to increase or decrease it, you can do within the window of 60 seconds again. Same with interval between these consecutive attempts. So based on this, your ELB will decide servers are healthy or unhealthy. So clear this part, guys? Clear. Okay. Others clear? And as I said, this is a classic load balancer, load balancer, and you have everything here only. You configure your health check here, and also add EC2 instances here only. So here you have to add EC2 instances. EC2 instances within the VPC will be displayed here. Just you have to select them. So try with this classic load balancer. I'm not launching it. We will talk about application load balancer in class. And classic load balancer is very much like application load balancer. We will do hands-on, in-class hands-on with application load balancer, and also try creating this classic load balancer. Let me go to load balancers again. Create load balancer, and then application load balancer. It's an improved version of your classic load balancer. And if you see, your classic load balancer is for HTTP, HTTPS, and TCP. It handles these three traffics: HTTP, HTTPS, and TCP traffic. And then they have divided into two load balancer for TCP, TLS, and UDP, which means network traffic. Net traffic coming through your transport layer, that traffic. If your ELB want to work at that level, at TCP level, you can create network load balancer. And this is application load balancer. And name is also named like that. Why? Because it operates at application layer. HTTP deals with HTTP requests simply. It looks into the HTTP requests, and it distributes these HTTP requests among the servers. That is application load balancer. Then what is network load balancer? Network load balancer will not look into HTTP requests. It will look into network traffic, and it distributes that network traffic among the servers. And protocols used at network layer or transport layer or TCP, TLS, and UDP. And why we need this network load balancer is it comes with auto pre-warm technique. And also you can read here, it can handle millions of requests. Just give me a minute, guys. Yes, sorry for that. Now, it can handle millions of request network load balancer, and it operates at network layer. It will not look into the HTTP requests. So that is the advantage of network load balancer. Whereas these load balancer, these can also handle millions of requests, but it has to be pre-warmed. Meaning, like how you pre-warm your oven, preheat your oven before baking a cake. They say heat your oven at certain degrees of centigrade, right? In the same way, pre-warm means suppose in the last minute traffic coming to this ELB is some n number, some n million requests or some thousand requests, let's say 5,000 requests per second or per minute is coming to this application load balancer. Let's say 5,000 requests per second. And for next 10 seconds, it can handle 10% hike of that 5,000 requests. If sudden hike is there in the next minute, in the previous minute, this load balancer it's getting 5,000 requests per minute, say for example, and in next minute it's getting into 10 times traffic. It cannot handle. It has to be pre-warmed. Only 10% hike when it is there, then it can handle. Not sudden hike. Sudden hikes, this balancer cannot handle. So if you are expecting sudden hikes to your server, then people will switch from this load balancer to this load balancer. So let's create application load balancer. Maybe in tomorrow's class we will do hands-on, but let's discuss what is different in application load balancer. The one we have discussed is classic load balancer, and along with these features, application load balancer, since it will be routing HTTP traffic, there is one more add-on. So this is classic load balancer. And they have added one more feature called as content based routing in application load balancer. Yes, your application load balancer also distributes traffic equally among the servers. It also does health check. And in your classic load balancer, you no need to have target groups. You directly attach. Okay. In the classic load balancer, uh, we don't want this target group because you directly attach your EC2 instance while creating your classic load balancer. Now, application load balancer, it also does one more thing, content based routing or path based routing. Let's call it as ALB. Of course, application load balancer, and it's also application elastic load balancer. ALB, application load balancer. Now, yes, there is target group. And say when you have different contents on your server, let us say e-commerce site. We have IKEA in Hyderabad, not IKEA. Let's say one e-commerce site. They are displaying their web pages in two languages. One language is English, say for example, and another language is says Spanish. And this server has web content in English. And in each availability zone, they have two servers. Instead of putting English here, I'll say all these three servers. They have English web content. So let us call this target group as English. And these guys, they want their servers which displays web content in Spanish also. They have created 3 more servers. And they have created one target group, and these EC2s, they have Spanish content. So let us call that target group a group of servers. Target group is nothing but you are grouping them. Now, application load balancer has to route the traffic based on the path. And suppose abcfashion.com is website name, and they will ask to use paths. They'll ask users to use paths. Suppose English users say /en. And Spanish users, they will say /sp. Right. When /en is there in the path, your ALB should understand and route that to this target group. If /sp is there, then your ALB should understand that and send to this target group. And this target group is also attached to your ALB. Now ALB has 2 target groups, and based on the path, it will route accordingly. Suppose if you take 360 digit MG, it is mainly into trainings. Sometimes we will be writing blogs also on emerging technologies, and we want users who want to visit us blogs to say www.360digitmg.com/blogs. And people who want to know about trainings, then they have to either say just 360digitmg.com, or they can also say /trainings. So if people they are not using anything, say for example abcfashion.com, then also the traffic should be routed to this target group. So in this example, because English is worldwide used language, so they have made this as their default page. If people are using /en, then also the same target group, and this is also a default target group. And if users are mentioning sp/sp in their path, then it has to go to here. Same thing if one company, let's say our training company, if people are saying 360digitmg.com/trainings, then we have our servers, regular servers in target group 1. then your ALB should route traffic to target group 1. Suppose people are requesting for 360digitmg.com slash blogs, say for example. For that, then there is another target group where servers have those blog pages will be there. Then ALB has to route the traffic to those servers. That means to that target group. Clear? So what your ALB is capable of, it is capable of looking into HTTP requests. It is capable of identifying headers. It can read and it can identify the path, which your classic load balancer will not do. This is an add-on feature, um, additional feature made to your classic load balancer. And also it is application load balancer. It cannot handle network traffic. For network traffic, you should launch network load balancer. Yes, clear guys? Any doubts about application load balancer? Okay. Okay, then in tomorrow's class we will do hands-on this. We'll create one application load balancer and see how it works. Okay guys, see you tomorrow. Have a good day. Bye bye.